Okay, welcome. Okay, welcome. Okay, now what we are going to do, we are just going to import our data. Right. So I'm just gonna, okay, not going to close this. Just go over to where our data is. Remember I sent you this file, which was the clean data questions. This will act as a guide to show you exactly how to clean your data. Okay, so these are our questions. So the first thing you are going to do when you get your data is to go over to your table. Now, to import your data, just click on the class DB database, then go over to tags, then go over to the import data. Okay, let's just give it a second. Let's click, go over to tags, go to import your data. Okay, now it's open. So the next thing we're going to do, just go over to the Excel, go over to Excel, click on that, look at our data. Our data should be over here, the Nashville clean data set. Click on open, ensure that you're in the latest version. If you are using Excel 2021 and above, make sure you're on the latest version. Now, on the destination, we are going to click our SQL Server client, or if you don't have this, use this provider for SQL Server. Either of them would work. Since I have it, I'm just going to do that. Then go over to your server name, your laptop's name. Then your database name will be the class DB which you have already created. Now, click on the next button. While this one loads, just click on next, click on this sheet one, and click on next. So I'm just going to go over here and make this, put this into not disturb mode. Now, next, finish, and wait for this to load up. So we have 56,477 rows. So close that. Now, okay, close this as well. Just delete this old. If you have these old rows, these old tables, you should just delete them. But if you just started, you don't need to delete it because you have an empty data set. Just delete this as well. Now I'll need to refresh my table in order to have this sheet one. Then I'll simply rename this to Nashville housing. Okay, now I have my data set. So the first thing we have to do is to standardize the date format. So before you start cleaning your data, you always want to have the view of your data at the back of your mind. So from Nashville, so I want to know how the data looks like before I even start cleaning it to make it look better and also serve the purpose which we want it to serve, which is to act as a data set for this housing in Nashville. So these are the columns I have, and this is the unique identifier, the parcel, property use, sales date. So the first table was to standardize this data set, the date format. You can see I'm having date time format where the time is redundant. You can see if you scroll the way down, it's always 0000 for the time, which is useless. So we have to convert this back to a date, simple date format, not a date time format. The simpler way to do this would be to convert the alter table, convert the table, the column, this is sales table, convert it from date time to just simply date. So I'll just do that. Nashville housing. Okay, Nashville housing, alter, alter column. Now we change this from a date time to dates. Now when I run this, it will execute. Okay, let's see. Okay, I think I need to write date, sales date to date. Okay, I think this is what I need to do. Let's try this now. Okay, so when I rerun my table and look at this sales date, it's now just the date data time, which is perfect for what I'm trying to do. So the next thing we have is this is our property ID. We're having some property ID that are null. So to show you, I'm just going to copy this. But before I gave this question, it's more or less a guide. Originally, you're the one that's supposed to look at your data and pick out the ones that are most important to you, that you need to be cleaned and standardized. So the date, the property address is very, very important. Property address in a data set about houses, the address is very, very important. So ensuring that we don't have a null address is very much beneficial. Is null. So when I run over this, you see that okay, where okay, sorry, I think I need to put property address. Property address is null. Okay, so you can see that I have property address that are null. I think I have 29 property address that are null. And the way to fix this is if you reason this from a logical standpoint, each parcel ID and the property address should be corresponding. What do I mean by that? For a particular parcel ID, it should have one property address. It's basically your PO box. Let's say this office PO box and the address must always correspond so that I can easily send mail to that address. So with that in mind, we know that the parcel ID and the address must be the same thing. So for some reason we are having a parcel ID but we are not having address. So let's just go over and let me show you something which I observed when I was looking at the data. Then select all. Okay, just this and sort order by parcel. If you take notes, look at parcel ID, you will see some parcel ID that are duplicates. Let's see if I can see anyone here. Okay, let's look right there. Okay, let's go down a bit. Okay, I think this, if you look at this parcel ID and this, they are the same ID with similar addresses. So there's a situation where we have the same parcel ID, but for some reason the property address was not filled in. So what we need to do is to compare our table using a self join, so that when we have a parcel ID where its property address is not filled, will automatically fill it with the one that is filled. So this is what I'm going to do now. It might sound a bit complex for your understanding. See, if you have any question, you can drop it. You can drop your question. Okay, no question for now. So it might sound a bit complex, but what we are simply doing is there are situations where we have a parcel ID and there's no property address. So in that situation, we are going to compare the two parcel ID if they are the same. And if one does not have and one have, we are going to fill the one that does not have with the one that have. So this I'm going to do, I'm going to use a set join for this. So let me quickly type this in. Select. Now I'm going to say join from, use a join from. Okay, so Nashville housing. This first step, I'll give it a alias called T1. Then join that with Nashville housing T2. Now I'll say T1 dot parcel ID. So if the parcel ID in T1 is equal to the parcel ID in T2, I will say, okay, that's one thing. If their both parcel ID is the same, then I also want to check parcel ID can be the same, but I also want to make sure that they are not on the same row. And the unique identifier is this unique ID right here. I'm also going to check if the parcel ID is the same and those two parcel ID are not on the same row. That means they are different row. So T1 dot unique ID is not equals to T2 dot unique ID. Then I'm going to print out the T1 dot property address. Copy this again, Ctrl C, and comma paste, Control property address, and this should be T2 dot property address. So let me see if this works. Okay, T1, let's see where the error is coming from. Net T1, select this and do this. Okay, so I think there should be an on here. This should be complete. 0 Nashville housing. Let's go down, see what we have here. Run this. Okay, so let me do this instead of doing that. Let me add the where property one property. I think I've already copied this. Is null. So everywhere where T1 property address is null is what I'm going to select. So you can see that all this null property in T1 has been replaced with the property address in T2. So this is how it's going to be. Now to actually update my property address column, this is what I'm going to do. I'll use the update keyword. So I'll say update T. Okay, I think this is T1. Now I'm going to copy all of this here all the way to I think from here is fine. Let's see. Set T1 dot property address is equal to, let's see, I think this should be, now this brings us back to the isNull function, which simply does a very simple functionality for which is if the first option gets to know, which is this. It simply means, sorry about that. So I will put these two properties, T1 and T2. So if T1 is null, it will replace T1 with this T2. So that's what this node is going to do. I'll say T1, T1 dot property address, address, close brackets, sorry, then T2 dot property address. I'm just going to paste this here. I think I need to remove this. Let's see if this will work. Okay, so basically what I did is from this table I've selected, I'm just going to replace the T1, which is null, with the T2, which has a value. So when I go back to my table and try to run this again, you see that I have no null value. There's no longer any null value, which is perfect. So I've done the population of my address data. So I no longer have a null value, which means I can now break my address. But from what I did, from what we saw, our address only has, let's go down, from Nashville housing, our address only has, let's go, Z, go down here, around this. Our address only have the address and the city, but I'm asking for the state. So since I don't want to go too deep into this, we are really interested in the address. The owners, there's another address here if you paid attention at the beginning. There's an address called the owner address, but the reason I'm not going to use the owner address, because the owner address has some null values, which is not the best case. Okay, it's not the best case. So if I want to use, there's so many null values in the owner address, which is not the best case for my use. But the null address has the address and the state, no, the address, the city and the state, which is the TN and so on and so forth. But I'm not going to use that because of the no so many null values there. So if I needed the state, I would have, what I would need to do is to uh, mash the address and probably get some of these, then use maybe Google to figure out the state for each of those address and cities. So I'm just going to stick with the city and the state for now. So this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to use my substring. So this is how I'm going to do it. Since I have in my address, I have the address from this starting point all the way to this comma. Then my city is from after this comma to the ending. So I'm going to, so what I'm going to do using my substring. I'm going to say select. I want to show you how the substring gives me that value. Remember when we were using a substring, we said we want to cut this sentence. So I want to cut from the starting all the way to this comma for the address, then from this comma all the way to the ending for the city. So I'm going to say property address is what I'm going to, the string I'm going to cut. Then I'm going to start from 1, which is the starting here, the first character here, all the way down to this comma. And there's a function to get this, the location of this comma, which is the character index. Character index takes in two variables, which is number 1, the value, the, what am I going to call it, let me say the cell or the column that contains the string, and as well as, okay, I think it takes in what you are looking for, which is the comma first, then the cell where that value is located. So this comma is inside of this property address, right? And the key point is this: I want to get everything from the starting down to this comma while not all including this comma. Okay, so I have to minus that. Whatever character is this comma, which I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I'm going to have to minus that 14 with 1. Then it's going to now stop at 13. So I'm going to do that here. Minus 1 from Nashville housing. Okay, this is good. Run this. Okay, so this is the address. So I have to give this an alias as address. Then the next thing I'm going to do is for the city. So I'm just going to copy this. So I'm also going to do a substring, but I'm going to alternate the start and the end. So for this, call this city. Now, this is going to remain the same because I'm still working with the property address. But on this count, I'm going to now start from the comma. I'll use the character index to get the comma. So I'll say comma property address. Then I want to start from immediately after the comma. So I'm going, instead of minus, now I'm going to put plus. Then where am I going to end? The last character. And there's a function for getting that last character, which is the length function. I'm going to say length, open your bracket, close your bracket, then search for the length of each of these cell inside of this property address. So when I run this, okay, I'll get the city. Okay, substring, let me see, substring, okay, there's supposed to be comma here. Okay, let's try this again. Okay, so this is the address and this is the city. So I'll go to my address and my city. So I have my address and my city selected, but I have not added it to my table. To do that, we'll simply need to modify our table using the alter table. Then let me just copy this. I don't want to type it again. Then I'll add a new column to my table. I'll call this column address. Use a small letter. Address, dates, end variable character, and give it 50 characters. We're going to make it 50 characters long. Then also for city as well, for this city. Let's want to see. Okay, now let me run these two, and I will create these two new column. If I go back and select my table, you should be able to see these two new column empty. So I need to populate them with the actual value. So to do that, I'll use the update key. So update, then Nashville, sorry about that, and just click on this, update the Nashville table, then we'll set the address to, the address is this value here. Control C, can go all the way back here. Now let's run this and see if it works. Okay, I've updated the address. Now I'm just going to copy this and let's do it for the city. So city, now go all the way back here and grab the substring we used to select the cities from here all the way down to here. Now paste this into this value. So I've updated for my city. Now let's go back here and check if it has been updated. Okay, so I have my address and my city. So the next thing we were asked to do was to modify our table such that this sold, what is it? Yeah, this sold vacant, you have yes and no, and you will not have this and there are some that are n, some that are y. You want all the n's to be yes, all the n's to be no, and all the y's to be yes. So before we to see this very easily, I will just bring back my select statement, then I'll group it. That you see all the sold, and I'll just group this by uh, sold as vacant, then run this. So you see, let's see. Okay, sorry, I would have to select just this. This I'm using a group by. I have to just, this I'm grouping by sold as vacant. I have to also select just sold as vacant. Then I'll do a count of sold by vacant as well. So run this. Okay, I have n 399. I have y 52. So I have to change this n to no and this y to yes. And what I'm going to use for that is the case keyword. This is how I'm going to do it. So I'll say select, then I'll say sold as vacant, sold as vacant. Then I'll do a case when sold as vacant is equals to n, then replace n with no. Next one is when sold as vacant is equals to y, then replace that with yes, else just use the normal. If it's not yes or no, just use what is there. Then I'm just going to say end. Now let's see if this works. I think this should be here. Okay, let's see if this works now. Let's check something out. Let's see, what's the issue? When sold as vacant. Oh, I think I need to specify from Nashville housing. Let's try this now. Okay, so if you go down, you see some hens. Let's see if I can. Okay, this is an hen and it says replace with a no. So this works. So now I have to go and update my date table. So update Nashville housing. So set sold as vacant equals to, then I'm just going to bring this from here all the way down here. Now let's see if this works. Okay, so it has been updated. So let me go back and actually check my table if it has been reflected. Okay, go back to this group by and run it. I'm only having yes and no, which is correct. So the next thing we're going to do is to do this removing of duplicate. This is a little bit more complex, and we are going to be using a new concept which I will not go into today. It has to do with a Windows function, which is a more advanced SQL functionality. Okay, so in next week class, in addition to working a little bit with Python, I will start the class with explaining what Windows function are, and also with the knowledge we have on Windows function, we are going to apply it to this fifth question. Okay, so until then, that's what we are going to touch on this remove duplicate. Once we understand what Windows function are and how they differ from aggregate function, then we are going to learn how to utilize them with this removing duplicate. So I'll leave this one as a bonus. If you can get this, it's good. If you can't get this, it's not a big deal. Okay, so we're asked to remove all the unused columns. So in this column, what are the unused column here? Right. So basically, we are not going to be using this. Okay, I think we will use this, but we will not be using this property address. We won't be using. Okay, this is still relevant because we updated this. We won't be using this owner address. What else won't we be using? Okay, those are the only things we'll not be using. So that's what I'm going to actually remove. So I'm removing. I'll go down to alter table. Give me a second. I think this is Nashville. Then delete. This should be delete. I don't think this is going to delete. Let me confirm. I think I've skipped my mind. Let's see what I have here. Okay, drop column. Sorry, it's supposed to be drop column. I know to say that delete or drop column. Then what columns I'm going to drop are two columns, which are number one, the property address, the owner address, which is property address, party address, and the owner's address. Okay, let's see what else can we drop from this. Owner name, owner address. Okay, I think everything is okay. Okay. Now run this, and those two tables are dropped. Okay. So the property address is gone and the owner's address is also gone. We have our address and our city. So the last thing I asked you to do was to export this clean data to Excel or Tableau for proper visualization. So this is how you're going to do it. One way to do that is straight up just export it, which is to, I'll show you the two method now. Let me just do, let me create a view to export. Create view, give it a name, let's call this VW export. Export. If there's any question, you can drop it in the chat section. Then I'll say as. I'm simply just going to export everything using a view, this view method. Execute this. Okay, so I have my original table and also I have my view. So I'm just going to export, either of them will export the same thing. Okay, so I'll just click on my table, right click, go all the way down to tags, go to export data. under export data, I will see my, okay, I'm going to export from my database to an Excel file. You just go to browse, make sure you have created a table, a workbook before. I'm just going to use this book one, click on OK, select the version to the latest, since you are using the latest version. Either you are using Excel 365 or 2021. These are the two acceptable Excel as of now. Okay, now just click on next. What I want to export, either you are exporting your view or you are exporting your natural. Me, I'm just going to export from view. Just put on ignore, and next, finished. So let's see why it did not work. Let's go back. Okay. Okay, so if this doesn't work, there's another way to actually export your data, which is to, there are two methods which I said I'm going to show you. Now go to data, go to it's clearly not exporting the data. So I think this is what I'm going to do. I'll do it the other way since the first method is not working. So go to database, SQL database. Now you're going to type your server name, which is A3. That's my server name. My database name is database name. Let me see. Class DB. So you type in class DB. Now just copy this query and paste it over. And click on OK. Give it like some seconds depending on your speed. It takes about a minute or 2 minutes. Okay, so these are my data. I will just click on load and my data will be loaded into my Excel file. Now I can visualize. I'll move it to Tableau for further data visualization. So that's it for this class, and I'll see you next week, Sunday, same time. So have a great day and do practice what you've learned. Bye for now.